morning again. I'm Scott, one of the pastors on the team here. Excited to talk life hacks this morning with you. I don't know about you, but I've got 3 little kids at home, and in our garage are a lot of things with wheels. Raise your hand if you got a lot of wheels. We got bikes, we got scooters, we got skateboards. Now, here's a little secret. It's awesome having kids because then you can buy toys that you love. Like, I told my mom, right, the grandma, I said, Hayden really wants a longboard for Christmas. Guess who likes the longboard a lot? All right, yeah. So that's a little trick. But we got a ton of these Razor scooters, and I love to ride around on them. They're super fun. I think we should all scooter more often in life. You'd probably be happier. But our garage was kind of crazy this summer. We had stuff piled up that we just need to get rid of, and so our garage looked like this, like all summer. And this is just like one corner of it, right? Scooters everywhere. There's bikes, everywhere. Helmets are on the ground. And we just had moved, and so we hadn't quite figured out the whole system in the new garage for all the scooters. And you can break a hip walking through your own garage. You know what I'm talking about? Have you ever stepped on something and just yeah. So we finally, just the other day, said, we should do something about it. So here's a little life hack for you. You ready for this? This might blow your mind. Hang the scooters on the wall. Ba-da! Did that blow your, look what I did. I found some scrap wood and a couple of screws, and I made a little hanger. Yeah! I thought maybe it would be life-changing for somebody. Apparently, it was just me. All right, so you just take a couple pieces of wood, plywood, you screw from the backside, and then you just hang the plywood on the stud. It's amazing. And then the kids loved it. They felt like it was a special spot. You know how these are hanging up? With those real fancy nails. Do you have those in your garage? Because I have those nails. They're like 3 just big framing nails, right? And then little big, that goes up. Skateboards, there's the longboard. Yes, it's awesome. All right, so skateboards, you know what else, how those can hang up? You go back to that same fancy nail bin, and you get 2 of them, and then you put them right there, and then the trucks, and then the wheels. And it's awesome. And the skateboard, and it's super fun. All right. Hopefully that's helpful for somebody. But I was going to preach with riding a scooter, but during practice, I almost broke my head. So, all right, here's another little quick life hack. Life hacks, again, are the epitome of our culture. They're the microwave way to do things in life, right? How many of you don't have a microwave? Does anybody go no microwave? There are a few people out there. Yep. All right. So we all have microwaves for a reason. We like the shortcut ways, crock pot it or baking it. So here's one that I don't use all the time. Do you have your favorite charm bracelet? Nope, me neither. All right. No, but this is going to be good for somebody, all right? So you put a little paper clip on the end of your bracelet, right? And it's hard to do it, so you do this number. I know it's kind of hard to see. You put the paper clip so you can hold it with one hand, so you have your bracelet. Oh, man, somebody's in on this. I love it. Then you go to this side. See how I'm not wrestling or fighting or throwing the bracelet around? And you get that little clasp. This one actually has a big one. Some ladies, I don't know. I'm picking on ladies. But ladies, why do they make it so small? I've put on a few of my wife. She's like, I can't get this on. I'm like, you can't see it. How do you? So anyways, it's kind of even tricky with the big one. So you grab the end, right? Just hold on here. This works. Just trust me on this one. Well, the bracelet's not falling off, right? That's the life hack. If you can open a clasp, I know. Hold on here. I didn't say it was super fast. I said it was the shorter way. Some of you can do this all by yourself. What is going on here? If you were here last week, I feel like my father during the 11 o'clock gathering. He don't worry, I'm going to get it. I'm as stubborn as a mule. No, seriously. Just wait. Talk to your neighbor for a second. Okay, I got it. All right. Don't forget to take your paperclip off your charm bracelet, all right? That's the other little tidbit on that little life hack. Okay, so the other one more here for you, and then we'll get to something that's super important. All right, one more for you. Apple cider vinegar, okay, with the mother. All right, it's got to have the mother in it. Now, we've had this around our house so much now, we just call it ACV. Anybody on the ACV club with us? Yes. Thank you, Bonnie. All right, awesome. So you got to shake it up because it gets crazy. Now, in our family, we have a lot of warts, okay? Like real literal warts. I had a bunch of warts growing up. We have warts. This is the best wart remover under the sun, okay? Now, here's the other caveat. Don't take medical advice from your pastor, all right? So there you go. But we've used this to remove warts for the last few years. And what you do is you just get a little cotton ball, take a little piece off, and you soak it in there a little bit, put it on wherever your wart is, and then put the bandage on. Put that in the morning and in the evening, okay? Keep it on all day long. And I kid you not, depending on the wart types, and I'm no doctor, depending on the wart types, anywhere from like 5 to 10 days, it'll be totally gone, okay? You put it on there, like in 2 or 3 days, it turns black, and then a couple days later, it'll fall off, and then you go a couple more days, kill it to the root, and it's totally gone. Olivia, our daughter, had one huge one on her hand, and then it spread, so she literally had over like 12 or 15 warts on one hand, and they were tiny. It's like, how do you get rid of that? And sure, you can buy over-the-counter stuff, the freeze stuff, right? Who wants to do that? Play with liquid nitrogen? Like, you know, you can do the topical stuff where you put it on, dry it, and then you have the bandage, and how do you do 12 on a 7-year-old? So we just killed the big one, and they were all connected, and all of them died. And it took like 6 days, and it was great, okay? Now, it's not a good smell, so you smell funny for a bit, but it works tremendously. So there you go. I'm going to take this off because, yeah. Now you got to find the place. Like, there's so many charms on here. And then you got to open it back up again. But there you go. It's easier to get off. All right. So we're talking about relationships. And if you were with us a couple weeks ago, we talked about relationships and life hacks. So this is relationships part 2. Because here's what I know about you, even though I don't know you, relationships are the most important thing in your life. Agree? Agree? And if you don't agree with me, what happens when there's a crisis, somebody goes to the ER, or somebody gets diagnosed with cancer? What becomes the most important thing in your life? The person, right? Time together. And it doesn't become the most important thing. You just realize, again, it is the most important thing, right? And when there's a crisis and there's something going on, it's like, okay, all this other extra stuff, and, you know, we just put that aside, and people are the most important thing, and our relationship with them. And we just believe around here that God wants you to have life-giving relationships that are awesome. And relationships, we think that not every marriage has to end in divorce. We believe that we go against the trend that kids can actually like their parents, and parents, you can like your kids, and that friends can be reconciled. And if you're estranged, that because of Jesus and the power of God at work in life, that good things can come out of bad situations, that you may feel like there's no hope, or you feel separated or distant from somebody. But we believe around here that relationships can be healed and restored and redeemed, and there can be great things that come out of it. Anybody with me on that? Anybody? And hopefully today you'll get infused, because God wants you to have life-giving relationships. Not relationships that just struggle and just survive, but relationships that thrive. And so hopefully we'll give you a few life hacks. And again, this is a different kind of message than we usually do, all right? So we're just got short kind of little segments here this morning, little tips that you can take and apply. Because I think this, I think to have life-giving relationships, it's 80% behavior and 20% knowledge. 80% behavior and 20% knowledge. Now, if you're taking notes, how many of you are note takers? You like to take notes? All right, raise your hand. Could you just keep your hands up for a second if you like to take notes? Keep your hand up if you've used the MC app note-taking feature. All right, we're just trying to get a bead on if that's helpful. We're trying to make a helpful tool for you, thanks. So you can find that in there. There's a couple fill-ins. If you don't have that, you can follow along. You click messages at the bottom, and it's in today's message in the notes. But it's 80% behavior and 20% knowledge. And this hangs us up a little bit because sometimes we think there's like a secret pill or a magic formula or a book we haven't read or a principle we haven't really discovered. There are stuff as far as relationships go, but you know what it is? You got to do something with what you know, right? And that's why we talked about a couple of weeks ago, like do something with what you know. One of the things we talked about last 2 weeks ago was, treat others the way you want to be treated, right? Right? Like, no, that was like not brand new for anybody. Maybe one person, but it probably wasn't brand new for anybody. But to have life-giving relationships, you got to do something with that. It's not just about knowledge. Now, if you're building like a spaceship, it's probably like 99% knowledge, right? And 1% of what you're doing. But when it comes to relationships, it's more about what we're doing than what we know. And so here's the risk. If you don't do something with what you know, you might have like life-sucking relationships. You might have relationships that are just going to be estranged, and you would just settle in and reside to the fact, oh, well, that's the way it's always going to be. Oh, well, that it won't get any better. I mean, you may settle into a place, and if you're a Christ follower, you know this to be true, that there's an enemy of your soul that is out to divide and destroy and tear apart and just rip to shreds anything, good or productive in your life. But the good news is there's a God of the universe who's greater than him that has given us life and has given us the ability to understand how to have life-giving relationships. And as a Christ follower, he's empowered us with his Holy Spirit in order to do that. So hopefully today you're inspired to do something with what we're talking about today. And the first life hack is this: own your part in every conflict. Own your part in every conflict. Your part. Highlighted. You can underline. You could bold that. You could asterisk that. Your part in every conflict. I like to own everybody else's part in every conflict. So like say hypothetically Thursday morning as you're getting kids ready for school and your daughter decides she wants to make pancakes, so you're going to help her make pancakes, and people kind of got up a little bit late, so you're kind of crunched on time, and tensions are already running high because you got everyone to get showered, you got to have clothes on that are appropriate, and you got to have lunches made, and now we have 3 kids going to school on Thursday, which is awesome for my wife, but it's a little bit tense, and then you start a little bit late, and then she's wanting to cook, which is great, but we make stuff from scratch, which takes a little bit longer, and then she wants to do it all herself, and so you're trying to help her flip the pancakes, and some fall on the floor, just hypothetically, I'm just making stuff up from last Thursday morning, but you're like, pancakes are upside down on the floor, on the mat, so you're picking those up, and then you're already running late, so what do? You throw it back on. Yeah, for sure. You're like, it was the gooey side down, and it picked up rug stuff, but that's fine. We're going to cook something out of that, pick the hairs out. You got to keep moving, and she's wanting to do it, and it's like, you guys can't talk, don't breathe, just eat, get moving. And we've been doing really, really good as a household up to this point of like, efficient in the morning. This is one of those off mornings. And I was creating some conflict in the household. I was responsible for the tension. I was one kind of, promoting and motivating it. I was like 95% responsible for the atmosphere of our home. And so Amy let me know that. Which was good, because I wasn't really owning it, and and so as we're trying to figure stuff out, I wanted to make sure she knew about her 5%. That's not owning your part at all. And I was 95%. So regardless of what percentage or who started or who said something last, like owning just your part. Romans 12:18 says this, God has this advice for us. Do all that you can do, right? Do all that you can. What is in your control? What is in your ability to control? What is in your lane, if you will, to live in peace with everyone? That so much of our lives in this own every part of every conflict is we try to own other people's parts. And if you're a Christ follower, you try to own God's part and how God is going to act and intervene. And we try to play God even though we don't say that and we don't really think that. We just begin to act that way and we don't really own our part and we're trying to point out other people's part. And it's the blame game. How many of you are in the blame game, right? All right, you want to do this with me? You ready to quit the blame game this morning? Raise your hand and say, I, fill in the blank with your name, quit the blame game. All right, 6 of us, and like 12 of you are mumbling. But to truly, truly, truly own your part in every conflict that you have, in every relationship, whether it's your marriage, whether it's at work with your coworkers, whether it's at work with your employee, whether it's work with a client or a customer, whether it's with your neighbor, whether it's with your distant relative that you don't see that much. But to truly own every part, we need to quit blaming other people. And one way we do that, one way you quit blaming people in a relationship is to apologize for your part. It's simple, isn't it? I mean, I didn't blow anybody's mind with that, right? That's not new information for people to apologize and say, hey, babe, I'm sorry for making a morning of frustration over pancakes and getting the kids out the door. And then you stop there. A lot of times in our apologies, and you know this to be true because you see it in other people, and it perturbs you, whoever the person is. Famous politician, a famous actor or sports person, or somebody that just blows up in the media for some other reason, and they apologize like this. Hey, babe, I'm sorry for making it a little tense this morning with the pancakes. That was my fault for creating that atmosphere. But it's because when you get on my case, you make me so angry. That's an apology, right? No, not even close, right? And you can see that when other people, like, they didn't apologize. Like, they're just blaming. Like, they started nice and it went downhill. And so to apologize is just to own your part and not play the blame game, not point the finger at someone else. And to do that, Takes a lot of maturity to do that consistently and every day and all the time in every single conflict, in every single situation, just to own your part. Makes it difficult, but it's worth it. That's how you have life-giving relationships. Because what happens when you do that is when you own your part and you just fully own your part and you don't play the blame game, you actually leave room for the other party to own their part. If you keep pointing out their part and how you screwed up and you're to blame, and if you wouldn't and I wouldn't, right, which nobody can control you, because if I could control you, I could like manipulate you right now, right? I can't make you mad. I can do things that fire you up, but you're in control of your own feelings. I can't make you mad, otherwise I could just point to a person and make him, I could go, Gordon, I'm going to make you mad right now, right? I could do things that I think might make him mad, but I have no ability to control him. So again, if I just own my part and leave it at that, then what it does in the relationship, it creates space for the other party to own their part. But if I'm always telling them what their part is and I'm going to own your part for you and I'm going to own your part, then they don't have that responsibility, they don't feel that need to do that. So apologize. Say, I'm sorry, this was my part, and leave it at that. And then the other thing is when stuff comes up, like make it right. There's a conflict. Something is wrong. Something is broken. Something needs to be restored. And I know to make it right, you can only do so much. Romans 12, God is saying, do whatever you can do in your lane, what is under your control. And it takes two to make, it takes two to make a resolution. That got stuck in there. It takes two to like have restoration, right? Both parties need to come together. But whatever is in your ability and your control to make it right, to move forward, to not repeat those same mistakes. And this is a little saying, and I liked it. I heard it this week. It was from a very wise man who looked a lot like my dad. And he said it this way, and I thought it was great, so I stole it. I said, to remember this, like to own my part. It's an oath that you could take, just between you and yourself. It says this. It says, I'm gonna own my part. I'm going to own my whole part and nothing but my part. Maybe that's a sticky way for you to remember this little life hack that you're going to own you can say it however you want, but I'm going to own my part. I'm going to own my whole part. I'm not going to exclude the pieces I don't like. I'm going to own my whole part and nothing but my part. I'm not going to try to play their role or own their part. I'm not going to try to play God in the relationship or anything else. So that's the first life hack. Second life hack here is offenses can build fences. That offenses can build fences. Offenses are this powerful, powerful moment that have a tremendous amount of potential. And a lot of times when offenses come, they build fences. Because here's what you can't control. There'll be offenses in all of our lives. You'll be offended at some point, right? Some of you are like, yes, already this morning I've been offended. I apologize for my part, all right? If I may have offended anybody under the sun, but I can't blame you. Sorry, I'm back in the last one. But offenses can build fences. Because an offense is an event. Hey, babe, those jeans look good on you because they don't make you look as big as you normally do. Oh, yeah. You just got offended for my wife, right? Because you're picking up her offense, which is her part, right? But you're like, right? You have all these different moments that you sometimes unintentionally, like you're just trying to give a compliment, like this is the best lasagna I've ever eaten, right? Like, what do you mean? The rest of them has sucked? Like, no, I'm just saying this one's really good, just trying to, we just live in a culture that is, I don't know why, but just almost looking for offenses, right? How many of you ever pause before you put something on social media? Because you're like, is this worded right? How can somebody misread that? Like, is this going to be offensive? It's just, you just are looking for ways to get offended. And our culture is, just always, hounding people to try to rile people up on these offenses, and we should take action. And there's all these important issues, but how we go about them a lot of ways is just not right, and we get offended, and people lose their jobs over it. It's intense. But here's the thing with offenses, is every time you get offended, it builds a fence. It starts to put a plank in the fence in your relationship. And the closer the person is to you, the more intimacy there is in that relationship, whether it's a family member, where it's maybe you work at a place where you're just closer with a few of your coworkers, or you got a tight-knit work, environment, or your neighborhood is really close. And so the closer you are, the greater the opportunity is to offend people, right? Because there's intimacy. And the enemy likes to come in. Satan likes to come in and destroy things. And he doesn't come in like full front attack and just, say he's coming in. He does these sneaky little things. Have you ever fought with somebody? And again, in like marriage situations or relationship, situation where husband, wife, boyfriend, girlfriend, that kind of thing, it just gets heightened. You ever fought for like 3 or 4 or 5 days, right? And just everything you're saying is just like, rah, 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 rah. Yeah, anybody? Yeah, okay, I did. Just make sure. I thought maybe we were weird for a second there. And then you're like, it comes up, it just boils over, and then you realize whatever you're fighting about, you realize that's not the issue, right? And then you trace it back, and you go, sometimes you don't, but sometimes you can trace it back. You know what? And then it comes out, last Friday, like last Friday, it's Tuesday. Last Friday, you didn't tell me you're going to come home late. Oh, geez. I didn't realize you had an expectation. Like, I just kind of, gave you a big window. I was going to be home. I thought I was home on time and didn't come up. And because it built a fence relationally for those 4 days. That every time there's these little things. The enemy likes to get in there and just have us, take root in our lives. Because we're all going to have offenses. And they're events. But being offended is a decision. That offenses can build fences. And they do, and you're like, whoa, I just got offended. And that's an event. Or offenses are an event. But choosing to stay offended is a decision in life. Choosing to just live offended at that person builds a fence, and it takes it from a wood fence with people sometimes to a concrete fence, and then a 4-foot concrete fence, and then you build it higher, and you put barbed wire on the top. And you just have this stance against certain people groups or certain things in life or a person in your life, and you're like, I'm just always offended at them. And if you were to have Jesus help you dive through the root of what's down deep in your heart, you would find it was probably a combination of a bunch of little things or maybe one event that was major in your life, and you chose to be offended. And then that rubs off on every other relationship. And you just maybe are a person where you're just always offended by stuff. Whether it's how they didn't smile at you when they served you your food, or what they did this little thing or that little thing. But being offended is a decision. And if you've ever had a friend that you've had struggle with, and we all have had that, an offended friend, in Proverbs says this, an offended friend is harder to win back than a fortified city. So if you've ever won an offended friend back in relationship and have restored things, like you could lead a military. That's what that is saying. Like, you are capable to take down like a nation. Because that's how tough it is. God's saying an offended friend. Because why? Because it's a decision that they are making. And it's in their control to unmake that decision and make a new decision. Say, I'm not going to choose to be offended anymore. And arguments separate friends like a gate locked with bars. And God wants you to have amazing, life-giving relationships. He wants you to thrive in those relationships. We want to do things around here that help you thrive in those relationships. That's why we promote groups all the time, get you interacting with people, walking through issues, help people round out your perspective because we don't see everything, so that you don't have this separation and you don't have friends that are now distant and gone. And in Colossians 3:13, this is huge. And this is for like Christ followers. This is like mandatory. Okay? If you're not a Jesus follower, you can do whatever you want. You can take this advice that God gives or not. But if you're a Jesus follower, if you say, I'm going to follow Jesus, you're saying, I'm going to follow what Jesus says and do it his way and his style. It says this in Colossians 3:13. Make allowance. Make room. Make lots of room. Rooms of rooms. For each other's faults. And forgive anyone who offends you. That's huge. Remember, the Lord forgave you, so you need to forgive other people. That's what the rest of the verse says here. That make room. And when it's hard to make room, think about how much God made room for you. Right? Think about how much you've been forgiven. Think about if you've ever offended God. Have I ever offended God? He forgave you for all of that. He says, now do that to other people. Treat them that way. Make tons of room. Because you're going to get offended by people. Offenses are events. Don't be an offended person and living that way. You'll be a life-sucking person in your relationships if you do. So, forgive quickly. It's one of the hugest things, to not let it become an offended position or an offended relationship, is to act on it quickly. Whatever is most reasonable, that as you are trying to make room and as you are, saying, okay, people are going to offend me, respond to it quickly. Forgive quickly. Not flippantly. If someone does something to you major, just say, oh, I just forgive you. Like, you may need some time to process that and just to make sure you're resolved in your own heart. But to forgive quickly as you can in the matter, to address it right away. And then choose today. How about this? This is something that's in your control. Choose today to not live as an offended person. That as those offenses come, whether it's today, later today, tonight, you at work tomorrow, whatever the case may be, that you would choose today, that is in your control, your ability to not live as an offended person. That as you hear stuff and as you experience stuff that are offensive to you, that you can choose not to harbor them and become an offended person that would build that fence in relationship. The last life hack that we have this morning is great. I love this. Is catch people. You want to catch somebody? You want to get them? Anybody out there want to get some people this morning? You're like, this is kind of tricky. I think it should be good, but you're like sounding bad, and I'm not sure. And this isn't one of those weird speaker, moments. Yeah, catch people doing something right. I'm making some new friends this year at Trent with some third graders. And so I've been over there the last couple of weeks. And so the first week, reading is always hard, but especially in third grade as you're learning to read. And sat down with a girl, and we're doing one-on-one. I just work with the kids one-on-one with math, reading, writing, those kind of things, just the basic stuff. And so we're doing some math. But I was having every kid come out and just read, hey, here's number one, here's what we got to do for our math problem. It's a story problem. So I said, hey, would you mind reading the problem so I know what we're doing? We can do it together. She's like, sure. I said, oh, I forgot to tell you, would you mind just reading out loud? Because for me, it's an opportunity to see where they're at in the reading. And she just gave me that, scared, but, angry, there's no way under this sun, dude, that I'm reading out loud for you. It's with her eyeballs in third grade. And I looked at her and I go, oh, no, you just read in your mind. That's fine. I mean, it was intense. But I know, I'm just there for a few minutes, and I'm not trying to be the hero or anything like that. And I know I'm trying to build trust with little guys. And I just said, hey, do you just do your best? Out here, it's not a test. I just want to help you. I just ask you give a good effort. I'm not grading you or anything like that. So she read, and we did the math problem. And then this last week was a 2-page story. It was their story for the week, and they have comprehension on it. And so I went from the bottom of the list this last week, and her name was on the very bottom. And I just called her, and then as we're walking out, I go, inside I'm like, oh no, this is the girl will not read out loud with me. That's all we're doing today. I'm like, oh geez. And so she sits down, and I'm like, oh boy, think fast, buddy. What are we gonna do here? I said, and it was like a Jesus moment for me to remember that, with her. And I'm sitting there going, okay. Hey, how about this? Because she gave me that, we're not reading out loud look again, frightened. And I'm like, hey, how about this? Do you mind if you get stuck? I could help you, with some words. And she kind of gave me, the sure. And then God just kind of dropped something in my head. And I said, can we read together? You do a sentence and I do a sentence. She's like, sure. And I said, again, you just try your effort, best effort, and you can sound them out loud. And I think it's great. And so we started reading. And with little kids, and it's so important, it's with little kids to catch them doing something right. Because when they read in third grade, they're all horrible, And if you want to pick apart, how they read or pronunciate things, or you suck, this is bad, you can't even read, right? But for a third grade level, we should expect. And so she's reading, and she's doing fairly well, and she has a deficiency in phonics, and so she's trying to sound out some stuff, and I'm just helping her along. And anytime she nailed something, I'm like, that's great, that is awesome. That's amazing, because at that age, they need such confidence. And so she's reading along, and then I would take a turn and read my sentence, and then she would go back and forth. And after the first paragraph, she started reading my sentences. She just started going for it and reading along. And I'm like, hey, time out. That's my sentence, What are you doing here? And so she's just gaining confidence, and she's sounding stuff out and trying an effort. I'm like, that's great. Good job. And she's thinking, no, it's not a good job, because she was going for perfection. I said, you did a good job. That was good effort. I said, you have an amazing brain. You know why you should sound stuff out loud is when you say stuff out loud, your brain hears it, your brain works on it without even having to think about it, and you'll begin to hear things, and she's just kind of lighting up. I'm like, because you have an amazing brain, and you can read. And so she started reading, and then I'm like, all right, that's good. She's like, no, I want to finish these last 2 sentences, for the paragraph. I'm like, you go for it. Catch people doing something right. It would be way too easy to sit there and just nitpick her. You didn't miss that, and you said he, and it's the. Like, come on, it's the most basic. That's a sight word. You should nail that, But what if you were out this week in all of your relationships to catch people doing something right? We live in such a society and a culture, and some of you grew up in a home environment or a work environment that you were a part of for so long, or some other environment where it was just like, we're going to nail you because we're going to catch you doing something wrong. And you don't even know if you're doing it right because you never hear about that, but you just know when you're doing it wrong because they'll let you loud and clear know that you're doing it wrong. And you just get nailed, and you're like, I don't know, and you have all these kind of insecurities. Am I doing right? Am I doing right? I don't know, but I know when I'm doing wrong. What about this week? Just catch people doing something right. Because here's the deal. You have power that God has given each one of you. And it says this in Proverbs 18. The tongue, so what God has given you, your tongue, your ability to speak, can bring death or life. And those who love to talk will reap the consequences. But you have the ability to bring death and life. How did God start all of creation? He spoke. And what did he do? He said, bam, there's people. Bam, there's a planet. I don't think he said bam, but bam, there's light. I mean, he spoke life. So why is it surprising to us that when we speak, there's life? And maybe you've heard this verse and seen this verse, and you kind of focus in on that part, right? And maybe that's hounded into you, or you've messed up and like, hey, you stop it. You're speaking death. Like, that's horrible. You're no good. Like, as someone speaking death to you. You know what I mean? But you have this ability. Like, I know it's both, but sometimes we focus in on the wrong thing too much. Hey, you have the ability to speak life into people, to catch people doing something right. You want to have a life-giving relationship? Give some life with your words. The enemy loves to come in and divide relationships and destroy things, little piece by little piece by little piece. Some of you are nitpickers. Do you know what a nitpicker is? Where you're just picking the tiniest little things. And so it's not like, in a relationship you're coming out and you suck, you're horrible, no good, and like you're just like, just the tiniest little thing over and over and over and over and over again with people in your life. Let God renew that, restore that. Be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Begin to see people differently. Begin to see people how God sees them, and to speak life into people. Like, use that this week to speak life, not death, into people. Speak life, not death. That'll dramatically improve your relationships. For some of you, you'll have some people in your life that are like this. They're like, this person is crazy today. Like, they have something. You do it all week, they'll be like, are you okay? You feeling all right? I mean, if you're one of these people that just kind of nitpicks, and maybe you're not all, you're that way with all people, but maybe there's a person or two in your life where you just kind of always just speaking death, and maybe it comes in the form of joking. Man, growing up, I had a quick tongue, and I loved to joke, and I could tear people down, and then be like, ha, just kidding. It didn't ever work, and it took me years to figure out, like, they weren't laughing, like, you could tear them down with your words, and what was that? That was my insecurity. That was me covering up for me not feeling good about me. And so my outlet for that was to use my words for death. And it was never big or huge, that I never felt like, that's not a big deal. But just little by little, just speaking death to people and not using the power that God has given us to speak life to people and use our words for good. So hopefully today that you've been encouraged and inspired to do something with what you know. I probably didn't give you anything that was mind-blowing or brand new, but hopefully you were encouraged in your relationships to go after giving life to your relationships, to have life-giving relationships in your household. Like, what if you took these and actually did something great with it? And it doesn't take a lot of effort. It doesn't take you have to shift your whole schedule or do anything crazy like that. It's just like, okay, now when I talk to my friend, I'm going to try to catch them doing something right. I'm going to speak life into them. Now I'm at my workplace. I'm going to own my part. And let's just say I work at, I don't, but I just say for you, I work in a place where everybody blames everybody else, and it's that division's part, and that person didn't follow through, and if they would have done it right, and if you work in the contracting field, it's always the trade that was right before you. It's like it's the framer's fault, it's the foundation guy's fault, it's everybody else's fault. Like if you were just to say, I'm going to own my part in this, how would that transform your workplace? How would that transform your household? How would that transform that relationship? I think God would do amazing things through you and in you in those relationships, and they would become life-giving relationships this week. So do something with what you heard today, and I know that the power of the Holy Spirit will help you do that. So let's ask him for wisdom as we leave today. You with me on that? All right, let's pray. Jesus, we're so thankful that you give us life and that